Hello, I'm Mayor Gracey. I'm a forester with the University of Kentucky Department of Forestry and Natural Resources, and we're going to get in the weeds with wood. So, picking up from the conversation that we were having prior to starting this PowerPoint, um, kind of up against the calendar now to get your firewood processed and put up for it to have time to season prior to you needing it for your burning and keeping your house warm. Typically, it takes about 6 months to for wood to season, and that's because wood has a tremendous amount of water in it when it's freshly cut. Sometimes there'll be more weight in water than wood fibers itself when a tree is freshly cut. If you're buying firewood, things to look for is there should be cracks on the end grain. You can actually purchase a moisture meter relatively cheap, but you're trying to get the moisture content to around 20%. Another way, if you're buying firewood, is to ensure that it's seasoned, is to buy it at the end of the heating season. Now, a lot of times you can get better deals on firewood. So if you start looking in February and March, you may get better deals, and that way you will know that your wood has had time to season prior to you burning it the following fall. There's some other things you can do to shorten that seasoning time. Get your firewood processed, cut to length, and split to the size that you want it as soon as possible. And if you're felling green trees, leave those trees laying on the ground till the leaves dry up. The leaves will help pull water out of the trunk and limbs that you're going to be processing for firewood. You really do not want to be burning unseasoned wood. What it ends up doing is most of your fire energy is spent boiling the water out of that wood, and that leads to much lower fire temperatures, and that leads to creosote buildup in your chimney and the risk of a chimney fire. So if you really start getting into heating with wood, it's good to have a basic knowledge of this BTU and splitting chart in your mind. So when you're making decisions on getting wood, particularly if you're buying firewood, you want to weight your or be looking for species in this upper chart, and that's because wood is sold by volume and not weight. So you're getting more if you're buying a 4x8 or a pickup load truck of wood, you're going to get more BTUs in that pickup load truck of wood if you're buying heavier, denser wood. If you're cutting your own firewood and yourself, then I don't get too bogged down in these BTU charts. I have plenty of room to store wood. I look at how easy it's going to split, because I split almost everything by hand, and how easy it is to get. So I would much rather be cutting hackberry that's right next to a road or that I can drive right to, versus cutting a beech tree that is 200 yards off the road, and I'm cutting it and I'm having to wheelbarrow it back to the truck. So those are the kind of the things that I think about. The thing that's the kicker here is you'll hear people talk about wood burning hotter. That's actually kind of a misstatement. Pound for pound, all wood generates about the same amount of heat. It just may take more hackberry to generate the same amount of heat as a black locust log. So if you don't mind going to your stove a few more times and throwing an additional piece in, you can effectively and efficiently heat your home with any of the species. You just may have to add more wood or have more wood on hand to make that happen. Firewood, like I said, firewood is sold by volume, and there's one standard measurement that's consistent throughout the state and the country, and that's a cord. A cord of firewood is a 4x8 by 4 stack of wood. It measures 128 cubic feet. So going back to that BTU chart, so if you've got black locust in that cord of wood is going to be heavier and denser and have more BTUs than, say, silver maple. Um, the terms that are often firewood is awfully sold here in Kentucky by a pickup load. A stacked pickup load will have about 60 cubic feet of wood, or almost a half a cord. The thing to think about here is that a cord of firewood can weigh between 4 and 5,000 pounds. So if somebody's telling you that they're bringing you a cord of wood in their pickup and they show up in a half-ton pickup truck, then that's just not going to happen. A half-ton pickup truck could not handle that weight. The other thing is, most of the time pickup loads are not stacked; they're hand tossed, and you just get a lot of with them not being stacked neatly in the bed of the truck. You lose a lot of volume by them doing that, and you oftentimes get the amount of wood that resembles more of a 4x8 stack, which is another measurement that's often used for selling firewood. And this will be referred to as a rick or a face cord. The thing to watch here is the length of the log. So a lot of times they'll be advertised as a 4x8, but they don't really specify how long the logs are. Depending on fireplace size, you want to pay attention to this, because you don't want to buy a piece of wood that's going to be too long for your fire. But what you want to be doing is buying pieces of wood that are maximizing the length that you can get in your fireplace, because you don't want a 16-inch logs when you could be buying 20 for the same price of a 4x8. So that can vary a little bit. I've seen these ricks go from 16 to 20 inches. So storing firewood, the key to storing firewood is kind of think of when you want it away from your house, so you're not getting insects and promoting insects into your house. The other I always tell people is to think about stacking their wood where they would plant a garden. You get as much sun on it as you can, get it off the ground. I use pallets and store all my firewood on pallets, and then I use T-post on the ends as the standards. You can do the cross stacks that you often see, and they're very neat, but I normally do not split my wood that uniform for that to work, and it's just easier for me to have a couple of T-posts on each end to hold my wood in place. Also, consider building a wood shed. I did last year, and part of the reason is that we've just been getting so much rain lately that I was just having a hard time getting my wood seasoned and keeping it dry. I used pallets and scrap 2x4 that I had around the house. I did have to purchase a little bit of metal roofing, but for less than $100, I have a wood shed that will hold almost 2 cords of firewood, which is about what I burn every year. The other thing is, you don't want to move firewood, so keep that in mind. If somebody has a farm 100 miles away and says, yeah, you can cut all the firewood you want there, this movement of firewood has really expedited the spread of some invasive species. Emerald ash borer is probably the main one. If you looked at the way emerald ash borer spread, it was was up and down the interstates and around campground, and it was around rest stops, and it was from this movement of firewood. So the general rule is burn it where you get it. You don't want to be moving it much more than about 20-30 miles from where you've cut it. The following slide shows how well heating with firewood cost-wise competes with other forms of heating, particularly in Kentucky. A lot of folks are using heat pumps, which are generated with electricity or natural gas. So even purchasing firewood by the cord is going to be in line with the cost of natural gas, and same thing with wood pellets. If you're using a pellet stove, they're also going to compete well with the other forms of heating. Electricity by far is the most expensive form of heating. The other thing is firewood. If you're willing to put in the sweat equity, you can drastically reduce that $1,170 annual cost down to nothing but gas and for your chainsaw and your truck and moving the wood itself. So a couple things that will really help if you're getting into cutting firewood yourself, that will make your life easier is tools such as a picaroon or a hookaroon. So it's basically an axe, but instead of having a cutting head on it, it has a sharp point, and you can use that to move your wood on the ground, so you're not always bending over. You can hit that in the side of the log, pick it up, put it in your truck or in the trailer. If you're using a log splitter, you can put it on your log splitter. So you can unload your truck with that without actually not having to get in the bed. You can stand on the end of the truck, reach in there with that, and slide everything out. The other is a log ox, and it's similar to a peavey, which maybe folks are more interested in, but it's a three-way tool that works as a peavey. You can use it as a log jack, so when you're processing wood, you got your wood up off the ground and you're not having to worry about digging your chain into the ground when you're cutting wood. And you can also use it to carry pieces of logs. So, and then let's close. Kenny Rogers Roasters had a pretty good slogan, and the same thing goes with heating with wood. It's the wood that makes it good.